Everybody, we're gonna have a fun show.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You know, Al, I've got some really surprising news for you. Right after the news, I'm going on a date.
Uh-oh. Great. That's
Can you believe it? And he asked me.
Uh-oh. Well, that
There must be something
First
wrong.
Tony Lima, now Ty Hauser. What's going on?
I had dinner with Tony last night, and he's dating somebody too. It's like the undateable. Finally, yeah. That wasn't a read.
Yes, it was.
I'll be next.
Well, you know, people are getting vaccinated.
We're gonna lead with this vice mayor of Fort Lauderdale. What in the world is going on there?
I don't want to say anything about her because they'll probably end up sounding misogynistic, but she's a terrible person.
4, 3, 2.
Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Thursday, May 6th, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. The world's first live daily queer evening news show. Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Well, thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ evening news show. Whatever is going to happen tonight, you are going to see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you, and we are part of the Happening Out television network, Hotspots Magazine, and WeMeg Events. Hotspots is celebrating 35 years of the LGBTQ experience, and WeMeg is bringing you Wilton Manor's Stonewall Pride on June 19th. Merged, we bring you the best of LGBTQ news, entertainment, and support of our LGBTQ community. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. So let's welcome anchor Dr. Ty Hauser. He is an associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. He also serves as our progressive college professor host on Happening Out television network's discussion and debate show, Gay Town Hall, live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Good evening, Ty.
Good evening, Al. It's great to be here. Next, let's welcome anchor David Hopkins. David is very involved in the South Florida community and is an officer for the Lambda Men's Brotherhood, a local 501c3 that raises funds in the community for organizations in need. He's also the co-host with Faye Watt of Happening Out Travel. Welcome, David.
Hey, everybody, and don't forget to donate to your local charities. They need it this year. Next, let's welcome anchor Paul Thomas. He's currently the chairman of the LGBTQ Advisory Committee to the City of Miami Beach, a board member of Miami Beach Pride, a board of trustee member of the Point Foundation, and on the endorsement committee for SAVE. He has over 30 years of experience in the healthcare and education fields, specializing in AIDS/HIV treatments. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, and let's welcome anchor Dan Rios. He's the director of LGBTQ marketing for Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, the official destination marketing organization for Greater Miami and the beaches, one of the world's most important and welcoming LGBTQ+ travel destinations. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you for having me back. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin the Queer News headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the Queer News for today, Tuesday, May 4th.
Well, today is National Nurses Day. Happening Out Television Network takes a moment to recognize the past year we have experienced that would have been so much worse without our nurses and healthcare professionals. So we say thank you.
Like at the height of the AIDS pandemic, nurses and healthcare workers braved the unknown of a strange new virus to help save the LGBTQ+ community. So we say, merci beaucoup.
So too with COVID-19. When we didn't know all of the details of this health crisis, we were all in fear. Nurses and healthcare workers brave those unknowns to help the LGBTQ community. So we say thank you.
More than 41,000 LGBTQ Americans have died in the last year due to coronavirus. The number would have been dramatically higher if not for the professionals of our nurses and healthcare workers. So we say thank you.
On behalf of the entire LGBTQ plus American community, we honor you today on National Nurses Day. You are literally on the front lines. You were in the early days of the AIDS through HIV and now COVID-19. We literally could not live without you, so we say thank you.
Well, let's begin tonight's news by querying up South Florida gay news. Shocking exchange this week between Fort Lauderdale's vice mayor challenges a trans person to arm wrestle them, and the trans activist replies, "Are you calling me a man?" Watch this.
Trans women are women. I like what you did. You proved, you showed the women came over here, you had the soccer team over here, and that was good. That was great. But you have to understand, as a trans woman, we face discriminatory, we be demonized. We are constantly like ridiculed. And it's so disgusting that right now that the conservative movement is to go after trans women.
It is a solution in search of a problem. But I think the more we have this kind of dialogue and we have education, I think we'll get there. But again, I just wanted to say thank you for, being here.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
And I also thank you for being here too. I really do. And I want to hear your perspective. I still believe my perspective that I want biological women to stay in the sport. And, I don't understand obviously the issue as much as you do, but
it doesn't exist.
I have to look at Caitlyn Jenner and what she just said this week. So, I don't.
Why am I surprised? All
right, wait, she's talking.
I have to look at people who also have this experience and see what they say. So as an athlete, as an Olympian, she has this perspective. I'm looking at your body. Do you want to stand next to me and see how different you look? Do you want to arm wrestle? I know you're stronger than me.
Yeah, but guess what? I don't want to compete in support. Not every trans woman. That's that assumption again. That's that Republican assumption.
It's not a Republican assumption.
It is.
I do believe men are biologically.
And you call me a man. Yeah? That's what you're saying?
All right.
Well, this report is brought to you in a unique partnership with print newspaper partner, the South Florida Gay News. At this week's Fort Lauderdale City Council meeting, an exchange broke out that you just saw between Carvel Istriplet, owner of Carvel Bikes on Wilton Drive, and a member of the City of Wilton Manors Community Affairs Advisory Board, and the Vice Mayor of Fort Lauderdale, Heather Moratis. Istriplet was detailing to the city commissioners the plight of the trans community, especially trans people of color in Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida, and America as a whole. Moratis referenced Caitlyn Jenner and her remarks this week about trans girls playing in girls' sports. The exchange led to Moratis asking Istriplet to stand next to her in some demonstration that there was a significant difference in biological women and trans. Moratis then suggested they arm wrestle to prove it. Istriplet replied, suggesting she was being called a man. The entire exchange was shocking, as the mayor leading this meeting is gay, and Fort Lauderdale is one of the largest gay communities in America and well embraced by the South Florida community. To read more, you can see all of the details at South Florida Gay News. That is on newsstands now.
Does she not understand what city she works in? Like, who does she think she's representing? And to be on the dais like that and to have those kinds of hateful words, it's just not acceptable.
We did a longer cut of the meeting today that was released on our Facebook as a special report, and Commissioner Glassman detailed a lot of the issues with trans community, and it was such a counterpoint to the vice mayor's just complete denial of all that, and it upset me a lot, and I can't imagine how Carvel felt being there in front of all of them.
It almost felt to me watching it that she was waiting for that moment to put forth her agenda. because I don't believe that she doesn't know what city she lives in and the people that she represents. I don't believe that for a minute. And I think she took advantage of her position as vice mayor to put forth her own hateful agenda. And I don't know. I guess the voters up there will have to decide if that's someone that they want to continue to serve.
Can we call her a Karen?
No, I agree with you, Paul. It really seemed like a lot of pent-up anger that was being released at the citizen, you know. And this is one of the things that I always say, that we may be having this conversation, but it is always important to embrace the conversation and continue to have it, because it's not just going to be resolved in, you know, with one sitting, if you will. You know, it really has to be brought on over and over again until people realize what's happening.
Well, I know for a fact here in South Florida, it's one of the most diverse, one of the largest LGBTQ communities in the country, and very well embraced in South Florida. I mean, this is one of the best embraced LGBTQ communities by the general population in the entire country. This is surprising to me. I know Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau has worked very hard. I know Fort Lauderdale's bureau has done the same thing to be very accommodating and welcoming to trans issues and the trans community. This was shocking when you consider this is coming from the vice mayor, where the mayor is gay, and the vice mayor is saying this, and she's allowed her opinion, but she's quoting Caitlyn Jenner as proof in that horrible soundbite that she had this week that girls should be protected from trans competition, which the American Medical Association, which we're going to report in tonight's show, says is completely false. This is not a question of maybe, maybe not, completely false. And she is reiterating something that is completely false. And this is not coming from some red state in Mississippi or Alabama. This is coming from Fort Lauderdale. It's really shocking.
I have to say that I'm really glad that we're highlighting this tonight, because a lot of time in the alphabet of LGBTQ, the trans community often feels like the T is not seen enough. Yeah. And I'm really glad that we're having this discussion, as the T definitely being a part of our community, and that's not acceptable. It's not just not acceptable for their community, it's not acceptable for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, next, I think we will queer up education. Middle school teacher loses control and scrawls "heteros rule" over students' pride flag chalk art. Sartardia Middle School students have accused a teacher of defacing their chalk art of pride flags by scrawling "heteros rule" over top of it. The school district does not deny the allegation, simply sending parents a vague email that said there was an incident, but they didn't explain what happened. One parent told a Houston TV news station that her child was present when the teacher lost control. The kids were drawing pride and trans flags on the courtyard sidewalk when the supervising teacher approached and demanded that they stop and erase the flags from the picture. When they refused, the situation escalated quickly. Another parent said, quote, "The teacher then threatened to pour a drink on the art chalk and finally grabbed some chalk and wrote 'heteros rule' over the pride flags," end quote. The station highlighted the words for viewers after showing an unaltered version in the image above. The teacher's chalk was peach-colored and can be difficult to see on a small screen.
This is very different than what Ty does when people are putting flags and he puts homo ascension over them, but that's a different story.
This is very similar to the previous story. I mean, it's a matter of someone that is has a platform that will then abuse their power, and with no comprehension of the situation. This reminds me of something that happened to me in school, where a teacher that I went to her daughter's house and said that I could not get into the pool because I was clearly gay and they could not tell whether I had AIDS. And this is when I was 16 years old. And these are the things that when you expose children to that, it still remains in my head. This is someone in power.
The viewer can't see that. I'm looking into your eyes and face, and I can see that in your face.
Reliving that trauma.
Now, reliving that trauma.
This is precisely how you teach hate. This is how you teach hate.
And it's being done at a middle school. These kids are very young, they're very impressionable, they're trying to express themselves, and to see an adult behave that way is completely unacceptable on every level.
Yeah. How can we possibly want anything more than middle school children to, on chalk on a sidewalk, create art of a pride flag or a trans flag? How can we ever possibly want anything more than that in embracement in the community? And also, I remind everyone, this is exactly why LGBTQ news is honestly so important. Because what I detect in reading a lot about what is happening here is this school board is trying to sweep this under the rug as quietly and quickly as possible. And they can't. This is a teaching moment opportunity where a teacher loses control to take chalk and write heteros rule. Why would, if that was a black slur, this would be national news. We can't allow this, and in LGBTQ, this is why our news is so critically important.
Agreed.
Next, we're going to light things up by queering up entertainment.
Yay.
Yeah, Lil Nas X, one of my husbands, doesn't care about alienating straight fans and covers EW. Yesterday, Entertainment Weekly released the covers of their now annual Pride issue. This year, the publication chose 4 names to front its magazine: MJ Rodriguez, Lena Waithe, Bowen Yang, and Lil Nas X. All were shot by photographer Texas Isaiah Horatio Venezuela, who became the first trans photographer to photograph a cover of any Vogue edition in 2020. But in his cover story, Lil Nas X discussed the recent changes in his output. Anyone who's been paying attention has seen a shift in what the Georgia-based musician has been doing. While his first hit, Old Town Road, was admittedly about lean and adultery, he didn't mind targeting it towards children, putting out inoffensive imagery alongside it. But since he's definitely gotten into more adult fare, namely with his Montero, Call Me By Your Name visuals. Lil Nas X said on the cover, quote, "At first I was really afraid of alienating any of my straight fans, but then it was kind of like, if they feel offended, they were never really here for me. They were here for whatever version of myself they made up in their head," end quote.
This reminds me of Eminem, I am whatever you say I am, right? I mean, it's kind of saying the same thing. I'm not going to stick around if you're just going to say this about me and don't really care about me.
But very, very brave, right? Because
Yeah.
historically, most people had to pretend. They had to pretend they were straight. They had to pretend, they had to fake their beliefs. Prince, remember when he lost his whole name?
Yeah.
And he had to become a symbol in order to maintain his individuality. I think these young kids really have a great opportunity at this time where they can stand up and say, you know what, if you don't want to be my fan, then don't be my fan.
And that's literally what both the song and the visuals of Montero are about. His name is Montero. The song was based on someone he used to date who was in the closet and couldn't come out, and how that affected the relationship. And the visuals in the video are the fact that his dad was a gospel singer, so he grew up with religious hate being thrown at him. So the whole pole dancing to hell and seducing the devil before he kills him is showing that he took what people were saying about him, embraced it, owned it, and took control of his life. That's the whole point of the video. And it used biblical mythology to do it, but it was a great saying, you know, I'm going to be me and I don't care what you think. So.
Yeah.
Paul, we're going to talk about health next.
Okay, next we will queer up health. The American Medical Association president stopped the anti-trans bills. Story from yesterday. Dr. Susan R. Bailey, president of the American Medical Association, had strong language for lawmakers across dozens of states that are attacking the health and well-being of transgender individuals by introducing bills that encourage bias, reinforce stigma, and impose new barriers to healthcare. According to Bailey and the AMA, these measures, some under consideration and some enacted, run counter to long-standing AMA policy that opposes discrimination based on a person's gender or gender identity. In the lengthy statement to legislators in all 50 states, Bailey said, quote, "Even as we work to defeat a global pandemic, it is maddening that more states than ever before are considering legislative proposals that would directly harm transgender patients while promoting government intrusion into the patient-physician relationship, jeopardizing patient care, trust, and privacy. This is wrong. Decisions about courses of treatment and other aspects of medical care should always be made within the sanctity of the patient-physician relationship. No state should legislatively prohibit certain transition-related services, nor limit the range of options physicians and families may consider in making decisions for pediatric patients.
It's continuing this whole past year, and it's been a long-standing thing. Conservative politicians want to regulate the bodies of women, be they cisgender or transgender. Transgender individuals just are an easier target for them to build a base of hatred in their followers. They have no position to be in anything medical. They're politicians. Most of them aren't doctors, and some that are doctors aren't generally medical doctors, especially not specialists in this field. They don't need to be involved.
I always think of HIPAA, right? Because HIPAA is this federal law. And you cannot cross that line. I mean, you really just, you just cannot cross that line. And for someone to think that they could make a law that crosses that line, I don't really understand where they're coming from.
Well, and I think the overall point there is push comes to shove and it gets to the Supreme Court, it'll be struck down. Or the Biden administration is exploring, I think we're going to talk about that tonight, is exploring ways to have these extreme measures that are taking place in especially very red Republican states. In a small percentage of legislators doing it, it will be struck down. And that's what's ahead. But that's not really the issue. The issue here is that they're using it as a political issue. And that's what's behind this. It's not health. The AMA is saying this is black and white in terms of science. Don't do it. Wait, we're not saying that maybe you could consider it. We're saying it is completely wrong. It is anti-scientific. We reported last night that Fox News has reported in the first quarter 126 anti-trans stories at Fox News, principally the Gang of Three starting at 8 o'clock with Tucker Carlson, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. The issue here is they can only, even Fox News, can only find 9 total trans teenagers, underage, 9 total trans people that have participated in girls' sports. None of them to any significance. This is an issue that had no problem to start with. So you wonder, why are they doing this? They're doing this for the politics of setting up the 22 election. Let's not kid ourselves. That's what's behind it. They're completely wrong. It's going to be struck down, but they're trying to win an election on it. Very scary.
And very sad that they may, right? That amount of hate and misinformation will be taken in by people, and people will vote even against the AMA.
Yes, exactly.
And on that note, let's queer up politics. Biden administration prepares to take action against slew of anti-trans bills. The Biden administration is reportedly gearing up to take action against anti-transgender legislation, although how exactly it plans to do so remains to be seen. Speaking to the Daily Beast, Alfonso David of the Human Rights Campaign said the organization is having conversations with the White House about fighting back against anti-trans bills across the United States. David didn't elaborate on how this would look like, although he did say he believes the administration will be taking direct public action against these legislative attacks. HRC's announcement comes on the heels of President Joe Biden's shout out to transgender youth during his first address to a joint session of Congress last month. Quote, "To all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people who are so brave, I want you to know your president has your back," end quote.
See, that's what we need to hear. That's the kind of news I want to be reporting.
Yeah, exactly.
And a point of the matter is the party of the Constitution is using these to attack people's constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They're not allowing American citizens to live authentically as themselves for health reasons as they should, let alone personal reasons. And somebody needs to step in and stop them. And if Biden's going to do it, hooray. That's
Since November 6th, I feel like the election and the big lie, and the big lie that he told over, I won't even use his name, over and over and over again, leading up to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol, and what we've watched in approximately the first 120 days of the administration. I feel like I'm living a real life Game of Thrones, because what's happening is people are positioning. to be able to have more power, have more money, have more influence. And the question is, the administration is very tactical. They haven't come out dramatically against these state moves that we have seen in these radical legislators in Tennessee and Arkansas and Mississippi and unfortunately Florida, because they know they're playing a chess game, and they've got to make sure that their reaction of dealing with the Red Queen or who, you know, the mother of dragons is the right move, because they know 2022 is at play. But I'm telling you, I really suspect that the HRC and the Biden administration is going to have a very heavy hand in response. And when they're ready to deploy it, I'm sure they're going to.
I agree, but I have to say, when I heard that on the news, I had to pinch myself. Those of us of a certain age, right? We know, like, we've lived through so much hatred and so much silence, and even living a bigger part of our lives closeted, just out of complete fear, right? It was fear everywhere you turn. And I had to say to myself, like, that was the president of the United States. Like, this is a megaphone to every corner of the world, right? Just heard the president of the United States say this. I think it was a historical moment.
Yeah, definitely. Next, we're going to queer up politics. Caitlyn Jenner on Hannity touts Trump.
Who?
He was a disruptor. California gubernatorial candidate Caitlyn Jenner praised former President Trump on Wednesday, saying she liked him because he was a disruptor. Appearing on Fox News, Hannity host Sean Hannity asked Jenner for her assessment of Trump, as well as President Biden and Vice President Harris. The Olympic gold medal winner, a lifelong Republican, had endorsed Trump, a fellow reality TV star, in the 2016 presidential campaign, but seemingly broke with him after he enacted a ban against transgender people in the military. Jenner has been widely quoted this week saying that girls' sports needed to be protected and just the ammunition that evangelicals and radical Republicans needed to attack the LGBTQ+ community.
And I believe we have that video.
Had 4 years of Donald Trump. We have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Give me your assessment of those three people.
What I liked about Donald Trump is he was a disruptor. You know, he came in and shook the system up, okay? A lot of people didn't like that in Washington, D.C., but he came in and shook the system up. I think he did some things that I agreed with, some things I didn't agree with.
You were critical on transgender issues.
On trans issues, LGBT issues, I was more hopeful at the beginning. But there were some good things he did. On the other hand, Biden, I don't think I've agreed with anything. I don't think since he's been in there, he has done anything for the American worker, maybe other ones. So it is a 180-degree turn in our country, going the other direction, and it scares me.
Well, too bad. Too bad.
That whole interview made me think, A, how much white rich privilege she has, and B, I need to find out what pill she's on, because she was a loon through most of that interview.
Living in a reality star family that is worth $1 billion, you would have the nerve to say, as a trans person, and arguably the leading trans voice in the world, unfortunately, to say that he has done nothing. Let me remind you, he spent $1.9 trillion to protect small businesses, to have payroll check protections for small businesses, to ensure that people were not evicted from their homes this summer, to be able to provide financing for refinance for businesses to keep them open, not giant businesses, businesses that were employees under 25 in that COVID rescue bill, promised 100 million vaccinations in the first 100 days, and actually delivered 200 million vaccinations when Donald Trump could barely put a mask on in the United States in the first 9 months. You have incredible nerve, to the point this week where TMC destroys you by saying, girls, trans girls can't play girls' sports, and they follow up with you, but doesn't that completely marginalize you as a trans person? And you don't have a damn thing to say because you didn't think it through to a second sentence, which is why you get in your damn car without even talking. Oh my God, are you going to lose as governor of California? And you, the only place you're welcome in the world is Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity. That's who you are.
How passionate are you, though, really, Al, about this?
I have to say, I'm not sure if she's the leading trans voice. I mean, she has the biggest platform.
Yeah.
But as far as
fame doesn't have to necessarily be good.
Yeah.
Right.
Most famous.
And
Right,
she's going
right,
to become
right.
the poster child for the right when it comes to anti-trans legislature,
Right.
because when she was an athlete, before she transitioned, the only hormones she was on were steroids to make it better.
You know, my friend,
she wasn't on T-blockers.
You know, my friend Power Infinity, it just pops into my head. My friend Power Infinity on Trump said, well, there's always crazy roaches for raid. Caitlyn Jenner is exactly that for the trans community. You're crazy as all get out.
Yes, sorry. Now let's queer up Road to Stonewall. Des Moines flag gets a makeover ahead of Pride Month. This may come as a surprise to LGBTQ plus America, but the largest city in red state Iowa has modified their city flag just in time for Pride Month. Des Moines' iconic red, white, and blue flag got a makeover. Flag of Des Moines, which spearheaded a grassroots campaign that successfully brought back the city's flag in 2019, teamed up with local organizations to create the flag. They partnered with Capital City Pride, One Iowa, and Black Liberation Movement on the project. In the original flag, the blue represents the raccoon and the Des Moines rivers, white represents the Walnut, Grand, and Locust Bridges, and the red represents Des Moines' passionate residents. The Pride version incorporates 11 colors to represent LGBTQ folks. 15% of each purchase will be split between the three organizations.
I didn't even realize most cities had flags, but I think that's actually a pretty cool flag. I love that they incorporated both the Black Lives Matter implementation for people of color and the trans flags. And, you know, especially in Iowa, you never expect anything like this.
Well,
Iowa.
That's the headline.
That is the headline, because we can't even settle on that here in South Florida.
Right. Yeah. Like
we have lots of Miami-Dade County people at the table, and it was like, oh, no, I'm not even going to not even going to talk about it.
I've never been called quiet, but I'll stay quiet. I'll stay quiet on that.
Congratulations, Des Moines. I mean, Iowa has not had a great year as it relates to LGBT, but this is really... and of course, it's their biggest city, and that helps. But when I read this news, I was thinking, wait, this is not San Francisco or West Hollywood or Wilton Manors. This is Des Moines, Iowa. Interesting.
And next we queer up the world. James William, American gay activist working in India, dies of COVID. James Williams, an American writer and gay activist who is seeking to improve LGBTQ plus representation in media in India, has died of COVID-19. Williams, only 35, died Thursday in a hospital near Delhi. He had tested positive for the virus 4 days earlier. The Alabama-born Williams, on a vacation in India in 2017, met Ayush Thakur. Williams moved to India to live with Thakur, and the two men became engaged. They were trying to secure a visa for Thakur so they could be married in the US. He saw that anti-LGBTQ stigma was still common in the nation, and he came up with the idea of television shows in the model of Will and Grace, as he thought introducing likable gay characters to audiences would be a counter to bigotry. India has seen a surge in COVID-19 cases recently, with as many hospitals unable to accommodate patients. Some people have died while in line awaiting admission. Williams managed to secure a hospital bed, but it could not save his life.
The situation in India is so bad right now. I feel horrible for, for this situation, but I feel horrible for the country in general because it's just really tragic over there right now.
It's a tragic situation.
Agreed. I'm thinking
absolutely heartbreaking. This is a heartbreaking story. I mean,
heartbreaking story, and I'm thinking that if we're struggling to vaccinate 300 million people, and they have 1.3 billion people, and they don't have our infrastructure, they don't have a hospital system that can, I just don't know how they're going to do it. And as we learned from the coronavirus, right, anything happening over there, it's going to happen here.
We have approximately 33% fully vaccinated in the United States, to your point, your statistical point of 330 million. They have 2.5% of 1.3 billion. There are some estimates in discussion that we could see, unless catastrophic things are done by the world to help save India, we could see 5 million deaths in India. And my, to your point, Dan, in terms of heart goes out, let's make sure that we remind ourselves that this is an LGBTQ story. Because in India, statistically, if our statistics of community hold out, there are between 70 and 90 million LGBT in India. They are suffering unlike any LGBTQ community in the world right now because of COVID.
I was in India 2 years ago, so I can confirm that number.
Yeah.
That's how many he slept with.
Yeah, we got that. All right.
Okay, that is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has been LGBTQ America's most important news source on the pandemic, as we have reported on coronavirus on every news broadcast since January 6, 2020.
Tonight, we report the devastating effect coronavirus has had on the American and worldwide LGBTQ+ community in total cases and deaths.
But we also provide hope of a new light at the end of this long tunnel. As of tonight, more than 2,332,000 LGBTQ Americans have contracted COVID-19.
We have watched the greatest single-year LGBTQ health crisis of our lifetimes. More than 41,000 LGBTQ Americans have died from the coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 249 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
So let's quarantine, or queer up rather, quarantine quickies. ACT UP is giving away, joints to anyone that shows their vaccination card. ACT UP New York has come up with a novel incentive to get fully vaccinated against the coronavirus. They'll pay you to show them your filled out vaccination card, and in return, they'll give you a free joint. That's right, a joint for a jab. So far, the group has done 2 pop-up events. ACT UP's Brandon Cucci said Joints for Jabs 1, quote, Joints for Jabs 1 was so successful that we want to continue the program through the summer to encourage vaccination among medicinal and recreational marijuana users and young people. Now that vaccine demand is slowing, it's clear that vaccines will need to go where people already congregate, such as parks and public spaces, in order to reach them, end quote. The group reports that they've given away approximately 300 joints. They say they hope to offer walk-up vaccines on demand at their next pop-up event.
I can already go to the park and get a joint.
Yeah, you know, it hasn't been legalized recreationally down here in Florida yet, but I find it very convenient that you can use your vaccine card to get a joint and then go to Krispy Kreme for a free donut.
Yeah.
They work together.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, it's a clever idea. And ACT UP New York, you know, I always think of ACT UP New York and the AIDS days. This is just perfect branding for ACT UP New York.
Absolutely.
In 2020.
Absolutely.
Well, that is our COVID-19 news for tonight. Next, we report that Happening Out Television Network is passionate about our support for the LGBTQ+ community.
An example is Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership.
The network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, with more than 30,000 watching every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and it's totally live.
We encourage you to tune in. Our campaign of sponsorship proudly supports Sunshine Cathedral, is my queer church. Watch this.
I'm Scott Galvin, Executive Director of Safe Schools South Florida, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this amazing set in this amazing queer church possible.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's hotel sponsor, Best Western I-95 Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and our hosts and guests stay at this LGBTQ ally partner. We encourage you to stay here when visiting South Florida.
Well, next up tonight, Queer News Tonight is proud to host our Thursday night business professional segment we call NetWERQ with a Q, where we will highlight and network live with LGBTQ business leaders, individuals, and organizations.
Tonight's segment features Lynare Robbins, Director of the Global Chamber Miami.
She serves on the board of directors for the United Nations Association Miami chapter, Care Resource, and the LGBTQ Tourism Committee for the GMCVB, as well as an independent travel consultant and founder-president of Robbins Global Innovations.
The Global Chamber Miami is a thriving community of professionals, mentors, and innovative companies connecting throughout the world of global business that exist in 195 countries with chapters in 525 metropolitan areas.
The Global Chamber Miami has partnered with the Global Chamber in Brazil and the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau for a virtual Pride Forum highlighting LGBTQ cultural events and destination markets in Miami and Brazil, taking place Wednesday, June 23rd at 1 p.m.
So here to tell us more, let's please welcome the Director of Global Chamber Miami, Lynare Robbins, to NetWERQ here on Queer News Tonight. Lynare, welcome. We're glad to have you here. I want to first ask you, a lot of our viewers are probably right out of the gate confused what a global chamber is. We've heard of chamber of commerces in individual communities, no matter how big or small. Explain a global chamber to us.
So the Global Chamber is actually a network of business individuals, organizations, companies, and we're really in 165 countries throughout 525 metros. So we're acting as a network to really connect across the world. And if you go on the website, you'll see that there's really topics across the board. It could be based on what's happening in a port of a city. So for example, the Port of Miami, or it could be the Port of Los Angeles, or the topic could be on immigration and how that's impacting businesses. The Global Chamber Miami just did an event on immigration, and our speaker highlighted how she works with athletes. And so athletes coming in into Florida, how is that impacting them right now?
The Global Chamber's mission is for the broad business community, or how does LGBTQ fold into Global Miami?
Well, since the LGBTQ community is also business-centered, we have entrepreneurs, small business owners, organizations that exist across the world as well. So we're reaching out to LGBTQ communities to network and connect as well.
It brings me to this event that you're doing in June. Dan is sitting here from Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's an interesting concept of how South Florida, Miami-Dade County specifically, but South Florida reaches out to another destination. And I know Brazil, when things return to normal in Brazil, is a major market in tourism for South Florida, the LGBTQ community for sure. So what's the inspiration of what you're doing in June, and why are you doing an event like this?
So it's really a couple of reasons. For one, you mentioned the Brazilian market, and as Dan can tell you, that is, I believe, our #1 market for tourism.
Absolutely, that's our #1 market. You know, it has also hosts the largest Pride event in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo event. So and there's a lot of synergies within our destination. So it is our #1 and most important market.
Is that true for Miami-Dade County? And of course, if you're #1 in Miami-Dade County, you're probably #1 in South Florida. Although there's always an argument of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, always an argument.
But we won't go there.
Exactly right. And
Right, we won't go to Miami.
It depends on who I'm sitting with, where I go, oh, that's the number one. It depends. I sit on the wall. Is that true for Miami-Dade County in both broad market and LGBT? Brazil's number one in both markets?
Absolutely.
It's the number one destination.
Number one destination.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's actually in right now we are beginning to see some signs. Things are not doing very well there, but we expect a strong return from Brazil, and we are already doing a lot of virtual programming, including the one that we're producing in June with Global Ties, because it is important to maintain communication with that destination. So when things do reopen, they will be almost a seamless transition.
And that's the second reason I was going to bring up that basically during the pandemic, it's really an opportunity to continue the relationships. And you can actually strengthen the relationship just through the virtual experience. And just talking to business leaders or people working in other spaces, I've had those conversations with them to say that now is the time to really use this virtual platform and connect in ways that you wouldn't have before. Before we would have had to book a flight to go have a meeting in another country. Now you can do it, every day if you wanted to. When we come out of this pandemic, those relationships can hopefully be stronger, and we can get more creative because I think we're going to have to. You earlier discussed what's happening in India, and that's also happening in our hemisphere to a lesser degree with the numbers, but certainly there's still a lot of pain going on in so many communities. And we want to know what's happening in these places to see, can we collaborate? How can we help each other? And that's really what the world is going to look like, I think, when we're out of this.
I was going to ask you, in terms of a global chamber and Global Chamber Miami, having this international looking abroad, being such a gateway for the Western Hemisphere, are there other global chambers in Florida or many in the United States, or is Miami unique?
So we have chapters all over the United States as well as the other parts of the world. And so we're in contact with them on a regular basis. We're doing events with them. Now, outside of the global chamber business model, there's certainly other chambers doing the same thing. I mean, there's the U.S. Chamber of Commerce,
right.
And then there's our local Greater Miami Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce that does so many great programs. And then there's the Gay Chamber up here in Fort Lauderdale, and so they have their international partners as well. The National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, so they have their global entity. So I think
does Global Miami participate in the U.S. LGBT chamber? Is that, or they're different?
Well, I'm a member myself of the Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, but the organization isn't. I'm actually pretty new to the position in the past few months, so I'm still making my rounds with partnering.
She's breaking those barriers.
Yeah, you may not know this. So your June event, and I want to take a moment to talk about it, it caught my attention instantaneously just because it said Brazilian, and I happen to know Brazilian men. So it completely caught my attention. Dan goes, yeah, okay, all right.
That's why we brought it to your attention.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that, Dan. Tell us a little bit about what June's all about. What are you hoping to accomplish for Miami-Dade County?
Well, to start, I think that it is, what happens is we can get caught in a circle with LGBTQ marketing and LGBTQ community, and we often surround ourselves with our group of allies, and we often don't look for other possibilities of collaborations. And I think that this is a great example of how we can collaborate with the county, with Global Chamber, and really highlight the importance of the market. We're looking at it from a business perspective, a business sense, and the LGBTQ community in South Florida has a spending power of $8 billion. We welcome 1.2 million visitors to Miami with 1.4 billion in spending power. So this is really, when you talk about the numbers, you can get the attention and support of organizations
Yeah.
that you wouldn't think about.
It's interesting to me, to that point. You do it from the chamber standpoint. You do it from the tourism marketing standpoint. Many in the LGBTQ community here in South Florida do not understand the impact that tourism and travel has. We have the #1 and #2 cruise ports in the world for the LGBTQ market. We have South Beach, which is world famous. We have Wilton Drive and Fort Lauderdale, which is world famous. This is arguably #1 in terms of South Florida, period. #1 and #2, depending on which county you're talking about. And the economic impact on restaurants and car rentals and hotels and shops and you know, and on and on and on. It's just
very
overwhelming.
significant.
It's just
Yes.
it's so
And
significant.
So, and one of the other reasons is really to highlight not only the destination, because Dan can give you the numbers, exactly what you're saying, that it's tremendous, the economic impact. But also, we're highlighting the events. So we picked 2 events to partner with in Miami and 2 in Brazil. And so Miami Beach Pride will be part of the panel, as well as the Gay 8 Festival. And then in Brazil, it will be the EIA Festival, which started in Mallorca, went on to Costa Rica, Colombia, Davos, Switzerland, and is now going to Brazil. And then also a expedition group that's LGBTQ owned and operated that takes people through tours of the Amazon. So that's really incredible as well. And they partner with a folklore festival. So we want to highlight, how do these events impact the local communities? Because I know certainly from living in Miami what Miami Beach Pride does for the economic impact, and also the social infrastructure, as well as the Gay 8 Festival, all the great work that they've done in Little Havana and beyond. So we want to learn about Brazil. How are those events impacting their communities? And especially during COVID, because, you know, we hear a lot about the numbers and, you know, the tragedy and the pain that people are going through, but there's a lot of stories, untold stories, about the innovation of what people are doing just behind the scenes, and how they're clinging to hope and looking for a brighter future, and they're doing it now as we speak, and they're just waiting for partners.
And Paul, remind us, you're on the board of Miami Beach Pride.
Yes.
We did breaking news on it. We were so excited when y'all made the announcement. Remind everybody what's going to happen next for Miami Beach Pride.
Yes, we are going to be having Miami Beach Pride 2021 in September. The dates are September 10th to the 19th, with the big beach festival being on the 18th and 19th. Please come down and have some fun.
We'll
get vaccinated and then come have some fun.
Ty and David and I live here in Broward County, and we are going to invade your county, and hopefully thousands and thousands and thousands of Brazilians are going to invade your county.
We
and make
hope.
it a
I'll definitely come to Miami.
Yeah,
You will.
absolutely.
So I do have actually an observation that ties into that and what everybody's been saying. I have a very good friend named Bruno who lives in Sao Paulo, who pre-COVID was traveling here for business frequently. He was the liaison for South Florida with this company. And not only would he come for numerous meetings, but he'd stay here for 2 months. So he would become part of the tourist economy for a short period of time, while also being part of the corporate economy, because it was so easy of flights to come here from Sao Paulo. And he was also part of the LGBT community, although his business wasn't. And there was so much intersectionality in it. So this event just sounds amazing.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons I'm glad that we could explore this tonight. The event, again, tell us one more time in June.
So June 23rd. We picked June because it's officially Miami-Dade County's Pride Month.
Yes.
So that's an ordinance now.
I won't ask which flag we're going to be flying. No, June, right?
June.
Pride Month.
And on the note of partners, I can't stress enough that it's really a lucrative incentive for anyone doing an event to find these kind of partners, because we do have the Miami-Dade County Board of County Commissioners International Trade Consortium that's partnered on this event. as well as the U.S. Commercial Service.
Yeah.
And so these entities are interested in the economic development, interested in actually, they pair up with the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau to identify tourism and just the travel agents. I know that they're working in tandem with you guys, and you're part of that International Trade Consortium since they were established, I think, in 2002. Around that time. So,
well, we're so excited to bring this to people's attention because lots and lots of people in our LGBTQ community in South Florida do not recognize how interdependent we all are. If you like your favorite bar, Ty has many favorite bars. Our restaurants, our shops, our guest houses, they are so interdependent of travel and trade, and that's what organizations like the Global Chamber in Miami and the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Miami and the Miami Beaches, of what Dan does. It's so important to us because we get so much benefit, and we get to meet people from all over the world that come here, and it makes our community diverse and interesting and vibrant. And so we're really happy, Lynare Robbins from the Global Chamber of Miami, that you're with us tonight.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's been great.
Thanks. Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show. Can I ask, is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television news in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
So if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight.
So I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dr. Ty Hauser, I was going to say David Hopkins. Wow, I did that. Dan Rios and Paul Thomas. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night.
I want Jasmine's makeup.
Good night.